Hi, Mike Moore here, checking in from the place where I hide from the wife. I've had quite a few views of my little video on shooting this antique Spencer rifle, so in case any of you are inspired to get the old Spencer down off the wall and get it shooting again, I'm going to give you a few tips on how to achieve the centerfire conversion and also how to make some ammunition for the thing. This is the gun in question. This is an 1865 Spencer carbine in 5650 caliber. It loads through the butt, 7 rounds go in there, magazine follower goes in, and then cock the hammer, cycle the action, and you're good to go, and a whole lot of fun. Now, since this is the World Wide Web, before we go much further, I should warn you that in some countries converting a Spencer to centerfire renders it non-obsolete anymore, and you would need to have it put on a license if you have a licensing system in your own country. I was lucky in that I lived in the United States when I did my first conversion, but when I get the gun back here to England, I had to have it put on my license and also stored in a safe and so on. So my advice to you, if you're unsure about the law, consult your local firearms authority, and I can only say good luck with that. Now, to do this conversion you don't need many tools at all. You need a good quality gun screwdriver, the replacement breech block of course, and the gunsmith's nightmare, the Dremel tool. To get the Spencer apart, all you need to do is remove the lever screw. Like so. Cock the hammer and the action will pull straight out. Now, the breech block on the Spencer is in two parts. This is the lower and the upper, and it's the upper breech block which is the replacement part that you would get, and you can buy these from Buffalo Arms or S&S Firearms in New York. This is the original breech block, and you can see that the firing pin is just a flat piece of metal that is pushed forward by the hammer and contacts the rim of the cartridge. The new breech block has an offset firing pin which comes to the centre of the block. The manufacturers of these replacement breech blocks claim that in 95% of cases they'll just drop straight into the Spencer and work without any modifications at all. Well, in my case I must have been particularly unlucky because I needed quite a lot of work to get mine to cycle or even to close the action. Now, one thing you need to ensure is that the upper breech block is free to move against the lower breech block like this, and one of the problems I think that's been found is that this lower hole here doesn't have sufficient play to allow that to happen, so that's an area to look at. Other areas I had to address with my particular fitting were the shape of this groove here, which I had to modify with a Dremel to get the cartridges to feed, and also I found that the back of the breech block was fouling on the trigger plate. I don't know if you can see the trigger plate. This is the trigger plate here, and the breech block runs against this little nose here. So quite a lot of work with the Dremel to get this to fit, and then the action to close and the whole thing to cycle reliably. Once you've got your Spencer back together and cycling reliably, there's one more thing to do in the interest of safety. This is the original follower from the magazine. It's the part that actually pushes the cartridges forward towards the breech block, and as you can see it's quite rounded. Now this was okay with the original Spencer rimfire cartridges, but it's a little dangerous to use with centerfire. So what I recommend you do is either machine a flat on this, or better still, purchase or manufacture one that has a flat or recessed end. That way you can keep the original and restore it should you ever need to sell the gun. So with your new breech block and your new magazine follower, load up with some dummy cartridges and you should get something like this. While you have the action out of your Spencer, it's a good idea to slug the bore. The nominal bore size was 0.515 inches, but they do vary considerably, so if you're looking for accuracy you're going to have to match a bullet to the actual bore of your rifle. Now to slug the bore you need to drive an oversized soft lead slug through the lubricated bore using a wooden dowel or something similar. An oversized pure lead round ball or fishing weight usually does the job. And when you've done the slug, you should get something that looks a little like this. I don't know how well that's going to show up in the video. Focus on it, possibly not, but you have the outline of the rifling grooves on the outside of the slug. So what you then need to do is measure the diameter of the slug, and that gives you the bore size. Now unfortunately there can be a problem. If your Spencer is actually manufactured by Burnside under the Burnside contract, and you can tell that by looking at the inscription on the barrel. You probably won't be able to see this here because it's very faint, but what it says is manufactured at Providence, Rhode Island by Burnside Rifle Company. Now the problem with the Burnsides is that they are through 3-groove rifling, so your slug is going to have 3 raised lands on the outside of it, and so you can't measure the actual diameter very easily. Can be done by some complicated mathematics, but the method I use, which is a little hit and miss but seemed to work very well, was to take a piece of scrap wood and bore it out on the lathe until I just got a sliding fit with the slug, and then I measured the inside of the bore. And in my particular rifle it's 0.517, and normally with black powder rifles you would need a bullet which is 1 or 2 thousandths of an inch above bore size to get a good seal and reasonable accuracy. If you do happen to have a Burnside contract Spencer and you know somebody in the engineering trade, then there is an alternative. You can get hold of one of these, which is a bore gauge, and this particular one by Mitutoyo has 3 little probes that come out. I don't know if you can see them very easily. They come out as you wind the stem and fit in the bore. And I found that on my Burnside these are actually small enough to fit in the grooves, and I was able to measure the groove diameter directly, which was a bit of a bonus.